You talked about Archie Manning earlier, and let's talk about his grandson, Arch Manning, who now will be taking over the reins at the University of Texas with Steve Sarkisian. What do you see out of Arch Manning, and not just as a starter? Obviously, we got a sample size of him starting 3 games in the absence of Quinn Ewers, who was injured, but now he gets to take over the reins fully. And we already knew this was going to be Arch Manning's team at some point. What does Arch Manning have to do, and what do you think he's going to do differently as a full-time starter that we didn't necessarily see with that sample size of those 3 games?
I like the athletic ability. He can run. He's different than his uncles, obviously. He's got some mobility. He actually reminds me, like, for those of us who grew up on NFL films and remember watching Archie Manning run around, that's kind of how he moves out of the pocket and throws a great deep ball. So I think that what's going to come down to is that consistency. You know, for all the stats that Pro Football Focus gives us, I always look at intermediate passing with quarterbacks, that 10 to 19 range, because that's kind of where you make your money in the NFL level. Can you throw the ball between that intermediate range, move the chains? Because not every deep pass is open. So I think we'll see how he develops there. One thing I've been saying for a couple of weeks here, when you start to see stories about, well, what if he stays another year at Texas? You know, the NIL deal's huge. His uncles, Peyton played 4 years. Eli played 5. So there is that opportunity and chance that Arch Manning stays for 2. And another stat I've been pulling out a lot this week is the only 2 quarterbacks that have been drafted number 1 since 1998 that played 1 season as a starter were Cam Newton, who obviously when you have 50 touchdowns, you leave, and then Kyler Murray, who had a monster year. So it doesn't always happen. That we were just talking about it. You want to have a quarterback that's experienced at the college level.
Right. And you also mentioned, too, you talk about just having so many starts. And you also mentioned about the statistics. And I know statistically, for great NFL quarterbacks, they have to have at least 20 solid starts to be able to know what type of quarterback that you're going to get. You said Arch Manning rather could come out after next year, or he could stay. What do you lean more towards? Does he stay? Does he go? Or is that just contingent upon what type of year that Texas and Steve Sarkisian have?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if Texas, who will be a number 1 team or number 2, top 5 at least in most preseason polls, if they win the national title, I mean, he would have the outlet to go. And I think that's something to keep in mind. I just keep reminding people, though, the Mannings are very patient. How many quarterbacks are willing to wait 2 years to start in 2025? Not a lot, right? So they wanted to make sure he was absolutely ready for this moment. So, I mean, the chances of that happening, yeah, you start to look at mock drafts and, you know, you start to, for those of us who like to connect some dots, if the Saints need a quarterback at number 1, who do you think they would want in a year, even though they did just draft Tyler Shuck? So, I mean, there are a lot of possibilities with Arch Manning, and I think the appetite to see Arch Manning at the college level is really high. I know from my standpoint, seeing him play at Ohio State in week 1 is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, I can't wait for that one. I know that's right in your backyard, so that should definitely be fun. What improvements can the Texas defense do? We always talked about, we saw what they did last year. Obviously, lost a couple of pieces, but what primarily do they need to zero in on to be one of the top defenses in the country and be well respected at the same time?
Well, Texas has some great pieces coming back. You know, I mean, obviously Anthony Hill Jr., he's going to be a first-round pick. He's able to get after the passer, creates a lot of havoc. They did lose a lot of guys to the NFL draft, though, 2 years in a row. When you have 11 guys 1 year, 12 the next, that's 23 players that Steve Sarkisian has put in the NFL. And we've found that the great programs, the Ohio States, Georgias, and Alabamas, they can absorb that. LSU a couple years ago, they had trouble after they lost a bunch of guys. Michigan the last 2 years, 2 big draft classes, struggling a little bit. So we'll find out if Texas can rebuild that side of the ball. I do think they're going to be really exciting on offense with Wisner, the receivers around. Wingo is outstanding. So Arch is going to have plenty of weapons. They're going to score a ton of points, but can they get those stops in those big time SEC games? That'll be the question.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hill is an absolute monster. One of my favorite guys to watch. I just love the way his technique and the way he goes about, game in and game out. And he kind of has an old school type of feel, how he just loves to approach the game and really gets after it.